Victor's hand slammed down on the table so hard the wine glasses shattered. "You think you can sit here with some nobody and pretend you're not mine?" His voice cut through Morello's like a blade, and every head in the restaurant turned. Sophia Langford, CEO of a billion-dollar empire, didn't move. She couldn't. Because the man sitting across from her, the quiet single dad she'd whispered, "Can I sit with you?" to just 2 hours ago, was already on his feet. And what Evan Brooks did next changed everything she believed about love power and the walls she'd built around her heart. But here's what she didn't know. Evan had been watching her for months. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels, and if you're new here, hit subscribe so you don't miss parts 2 through 5. The call came at 6:47 p.m. on a Friday, and Sophia Langford almost didn't answer. She was standing in the elevator of Langford Capital's downtown Chicago headquarters, her thumb hovering over the red button when the name flashed across her screen. Richard Calloway, board chairman. The one man in her professional life who could make her stomach drop with a single phone call. She answered. "Richard." "Sophia, we need to talk about Monday's vote." "What about it?" "You're going to lose." "No." The elevator doors opened. The lobby was empty. Her heels echoed against the marble floor as she walked toward the parking garage, phone pressed hard against her ear. "That's not possible. I have the votes." "You had the votes. Victor's been making calls. He flipped Greenberg and Tanaka this afternoon." Sophia stopped walking. She closed her eyes. Victor. Of course it was Victor. "How do you know this?" "Because he called me to Sophia. He offered me a seat on his new advisory board if I voted against the acquisition." "And what did you tell him?" Richard paused. That pause told her everything. "Richard, I told him I'd think about it." "You've got to be kidding me." "Sophia, listen to me. I'm on your side. But you need to understand what you're up against. Victor isn't just trying to block the acquisition. He's trying to take your seat. He's been telling people you're unstable, emotional, that the company needs steadier hands." Sophia's jaw tightened. "Steadier hands. That's what he said." Those were his exact words. She reached her car. A black Mercedes parked alone in the executive section of the garage. She didn't get in. She leaned against it, one hand flat on the cold metal, and stared at the concrete ceiling. "Richard, I built this company from a 12-person startup in a rented office. I took it public. I tripled revenue in 4 years. And Victor, a man who couldn't manage a lemonade stand without a spreadsheet someone else made, is telling people I'm unstable. I know. But knowing the truth and controlling the narrative are two different things. You taught me that." Sophia said nothing for a long moment. "Monday," she said. "I'll handle it by Monday." She hung up, got in the car, and sat there in the dark garage for 5 full minutes. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, breathing. Then she started the engine and drove. She didn't go home. Home was a penthouse on Lakeshore Drive with floor-to-ceiling windows and absolute silence. And silence was the last thing she needed tonight. Silence would let the thoughts in. Silence would let Victor's voice creep into her head the way it always did, smooth, confident, corrosive. "You're unstable. Emotional. The company needs steadier hands." She needed noise. She needed people. She needed to sit somewhere and feel like a human being instead of a target. Morello's was 14 blocks from her office. She'd driven past it 100 times, but never gone in. It was the kind of place that didn't take reservations, a family-owned Italian restaurant with red checkered tablecloths and candles in wine bottles. Not her world. Not even close. She parked on the street and walked in. The hostess, a young woman with dark curly hair, looked up and smiled. "Welcome to Morello's. Just one tonight." "Just one. It's going to be about a 45-minute wait. Friday nights are 45 minutes. I'm sorry, we're completely full." Sophia looked past the hostess into the dining room. Every table was taken. Families, couples, groups of friends laughing over plates of pasta and baskets of bread. The noise was exactly what she'd wanted, but there was nowhere to sit. She was about to leave. She'd already turned toward the door. And that's when she saw him. Corner table, far wall, a man sitting alone. He was in his mid-30s maybe. Brown hair a little messy. A flannel shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He had a plate of spaghetti in front of him that he was eating slowly, methodically, like a man who'd learned to take his time with the small things, because the big things moved too fast. There was a children's drawing on the table next to his plate, a crayon picture of what looked like a house with a big yellow sun. He looked tired. But it was a different kind of tired than what Sophia saw in the mirror every morning. His was the tiredness of a man who gave everything he had to someone else and kept nothing for himself. And despite that tiredness, there was something calm about him, something steady. Sophia didn't think about what she did next. She just did it. She walked across the restaurant, past the hostess, past the crowded tables, and stopped in front of him. He looked up. Hazel eyes. Warm. Curious. "Can I sit with you?" she said. It came out as a whisper. She hadn't meant it to, but the words felt too fragile for anything louder. He studied her for a moment. Not the way men usually studied her, calculating her net worth, her status, her usefulness. He looked at her the way you look at someone who's been standing in the rain too long. "Yeah," he said. "Of course." She sat down. "I'm Sophia. Evan Brooks. Thank you for this, Evan. I know it's strange." "It's not strange. It's Friday night, the place is packed, and you looked like you needed to sit down. That's not strange. That's just life." She almost laughed. Almost. Just life. I like that. A waiter appeared. Sophia ordered a glass of red wine. When it came, she held it, but didn't drink. She just wrapped her fingers around the glass and felt the warmth of the room settle around her. "That's a nice drawing," she said, nodding toward the crayon picture. Evan picked it up and held it like it was a Picasso. "My daughter Emma made this. She's 7. She told me this morning that she drew our house, but I'm pretty sure the purple thing in the yard is supposed to be me." The purple thing. She said it's a dad-shaped tree. Apparently I stand in the yard too much. Sophia laughed. A real laugh. The first one in weeks. Evan smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't ask for anything. It just existed, easy and honest. "So what brings you to Morello's on a Friday night, Sophia? You don't look like a regular." "What do regulars look like?" "They don't wear heels that cost more than my car payment." She glanced down at her shoes. Louboutins. Red soles. She'd forgotten she was still in her work clothes. "Fair point," she said. "I had a bad day." "How bad?" "Someone I trusted is trying to destroy everything I've built, and he might succeed." Evan set down his fork. He didn't lean back or cross his arms, or do any of the things people did when they were preparing to give advice they hadn't earned the right to give. He just looked at her. "That's more than a bad day," he said. "Yeah, it is." "Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to talk about something else?" "Something else. Please." "Okay, let me tell you about the time Emma tried to give the dog a haircut." And just like that, the weight shifted. Not gone weight like Sophia carried, didn't just disappear, but it shifted. It made room for something else. Evan talked about Emma, about the haircut disaster that ended with a half-bald golden retriever and a 7-year-old who insisted she was improving his aerodynamics. About the morning routine that involved 17 negotiations just to get shoes on the right feet. About the school play where Emma was cast as a tree but delivered her one line, "I am the oak," with so much intensity that the entire audience gave her a standing ovation. Sophia listened. Really listened. Not the way she listened in boardrooms, filtering every word for leverage or weakness. She listened the way she used to before the money, before the power, before she'd learned to treat every conversation like a chess match. "You're a good dad," she said. Evan's smile flickered. Just for a second. "I try. Some days I'm not sure I'm doing any of it right." Her mom left when Emma was 3. Just packed a bag one morning and said she needed to find herself. Haven't heard from her since. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Emma and I figured it out. We're a team. A small, loud, slightly disorganized team, but a team. That's more than most people have." "What about you?" "You said someone's trying to destroy what you built. What did you build?" Sophia hesitated. This was the moment where she usually put the wall up, the practiced answer, the corporate smile. "I run a company. It's in finance. It keeps me busy." But something about the way Evan asked, like he actually wanted to know, not because of what she was worth, but because he was sitting across from her, and it seemed like the right thing to ask, made her tell the truth. "I'm the CEO of Langford Capital. I built it from nothing, and my ex-husband is trying to take it from me." Bah. Evan didn't flinch, didn't widen his eyes, didn't do the math in his head the way people always did when they heard the word billionaire attached to a woman's name. "Your ex-husband," he said. "That's the person you trusted." "Victor Ashford. We were married for 3 years. He was charming, brilliant, and completely ruthless. I didn't see it until it was too late." "What happened?" "He wanted control of the company, of the board, of me. When I wouldn't give it to him, he started undermining me, quietly at first. A comment here, a rumor there. Then the divorce. And now he's on my board, and he's trying to push me out of my own company." Evan was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that caught her completely off guard. "My ex-wife's name was Claire. She didn't want control. She wanted escape. Different kind of damage, same kind of scar." Sophia stared at him. In 15 seconds, this man in a flannel shirt had understood something that 3 therapists and a life coach had spent years circling around. "Yeah," she whispered. "Same kind of scar." They sat in that silence together. Not an awkward silence. Not the kind that needed filling. The kind that 2 people share when they've both been to the same dark place and come back breathing. The restaurant hummed around them. Plates clattered. A child laughed somewhere near the kitchen. The candle on the table flickered between them, casting shadows that moved like something alive. "Can I ask you something?" Evan said. "Go ahead." "When's the last time someone asked you how you're doing and you told them the truth?" Sophia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Tonight," she said. "Right now. With you." Evan nodded slowly. "Then I'm glad you sat down. So am I." The waiter came back. Sophia finally took a sip of her wine. Evan ordered another basket of bread because he said, bread fixes most things, and the things it doesn't fix more bread does. She laughed again. That was twice in one evening. A record. They talked about Chicago, about the winters that made you question your life choices and the summers that made you forget, about deep dish pizza versus thin crust, which Evan called the only political argument worth having, about the lakefront at dawn, which Evan described with the kind of quiet reverence that made Sophia realize this man noticed beauty in places she'd stopped looking. "You really love this city," she said. "I love what it gives Emma. Good schools, good parks. A neighbor named Mrs. Chen who brings over dumplings every Sunday and teaches Emma Mandarin words that I'm pretty sure are insults about me." "Are they?" "Last week Emma called me a confused potato. Mrs. Chen thought it was hilarious." Sophia nearly choked on her wine. And for a while, everything was okay. The board meeting was still waiting. Victor was still scheming. Monday was still coming. But right here, right now, at this table with a man who called bread a solution and whose daughter drew dad-shaped trees, Sophia Langford felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt safe. It was nearly 9 o'clock when Evan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. "Emma, my neighbor. Emma's been asleep since 8, apparently curled up with the dog on the couch. She sent a picture. He turned the phone toward Sophia. A little girl with brown curls, sound asleep, one arm wrapped around a golden retriever, who looked like he'd been through a war, but was perfectly content. "She's beautiful," Sophia said. And she meant it in a way that surprised her, not as a polite compliment, but as a recognition of something pure in a world that had felt dirty for too long. "She's everything," Evan said simply. Sophia looked at him, really looked, and something clicked into place. A feeling she couldn't name yet. Something between recognition and longing. Like finding a book you'd been searching for on a shelf, you'd walked past 1,000 times. She didn't say any of this. She just took another sip of wine and smiled. "Tell me more about the dad-shaped tree," she said. And Evan did. The restaurant began to thin out. Couples paid their checks. Families gathered coats and children. The noise dimmed to a low murmur, and the candle between them burned lower, but neither Sophia nor Evan made any move to leave. Because both of them knew without saying it, without needing to, that whatever this was, it wasn't finished. And neither were they. It was Evan who finally broke the spell. "It's almost 10, he said, glancing at his watch. "I should get back. Mrs. Chen's generous, but she charges in guilt if I'm out past 10:30. Sophia felt something tighten in her chest. A small panic she hadn't expected. The kind you feel when you realize the one good thing in a terrible day is about to walk out the door. "Right," she said. "Of course. You have Emma." "I do." Evan pulled out his wallet and left 2 20s on the table. Sophia reached for her purse, but he shook his head. "You sat at my table. That makes you my guest." "Evan, I know you can. That's not the point." She looked at him. This man who made less in a year than she made in a board meeting, insisting on paying for dinner like it was the most natural thing in the world. And to him, it was. "Thank you," she said quietly. They walked out together. The night air hit them both crisp cold, the kind of October air that makes Chicago feel like it's reminding you to pay attention. Sophia pulled her blazer tighter around her shoulders. "Where are you parked?" Evan asked. "Just around the corner. You?" "2 blocks down. I got the last spot on Halstead." They stood on the sidewalk facing each other. Traffic hummed behind them. A streetlight flickered overhead, casting them both in uneven gold. Sophia: "Yeah. Whatever happens Monday with your board with your ex, you're going to be fine. I don't know you well, but I know that much." "How do you know that?" "Because you walked into a restaurant full of strangers and sat down with one. That takes more guts than any boardroom." She wanted to say something clever, something sharp and self-assured the way she would in any professional setting, but nothing came, so she just nodded. "Good night, Evan." "Good night, Sophia." He turned and walked down the sidewalk. She watched him go, hands in his jacket pockets, shoulders slightly hunched against the cold, moving with the easy stride of a man who didn't rush because he'd learned that rushing never got you there faster. She got in her car, started the engine, sat there. Then she picked up her phone and realized she didn't have his number. She didn't even have his last name right away in her contacts. Just a memory. Evan Brooks' corner table hazel eyes, a daughter named Emma, and the first honest conversation she'd had in 3 years. She drove home. The penthouse was exactly as she'd left it. Spotless. Cold. Every surface gleaming under recessed lighting that her interior designer had called warm, but felt anything but. She dropped her keys on the marble counter, kicked off the Louboutins, and walked to the window. Lake Michigan stretched out below her, black and endless. The city lights reflected off the water in broken patterns. Somewhere out there, Evan was pulling into his driveway, relieving Mrs. Chen of her babysitting duties, and carrying a sleeping Emma from the couch to her bed. Sophia pressed her forehead against the glass. Her phone buzzed. She looked down, expecting Richard, expecting another board member folding under Victor's pressure. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is the confused potato. I got your number from the Morello's reservation list. Hope that's not creepy. If it is, blame Mrs. Chen. She said fortune favors the bold. Good night, Sophia." She stared at the screen. Then she laughed the third time tonight and typed back, "Not creepy. Bold is good. Good night, Evan." She set the phone down on the nightstand and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, the thoughts that usually crowded in at night, the board votes, the quarterly projections, Victor's scheming didn't come. Instead, she kept hearing Evan's voice. Bread fixes most things, and the things it doesn't fix, more bread does. She fell asleep, smiling. Saturday morning came hard and fast. Saturday morning came. Sophia was in her home office by 7, coffee in hand, laptop open, already drafting a strategy memo for Monday's vote. She'd spent 3 years fighting for the Meridian acquisition, a tech company that would diversify Langford Capital's portfolio and position them for the next decade. Victor had fought it from the start, not because it was a bad deal, but because it was her deal, her vision. And Victor couldn't stand the idea that Sophia's vision might succeed without him in it. Her phone rang at 8. It was Patricia Holloway, her chief legal officer, and the closest thing Sophia had to a friend in the corporate world. "Tell me you have good news," Sophia said. "Define good." "Patricia." Victor filed a motion yesterday with the SEC. He's claiming the Meridian deal has undisclosed conflicts of interest. It's garbage. Sophia, completely baseless, but it's going to create headlines. And headlines create doubt. Sophia closed her laptop. He's trying to spook the board. He's doing more than that. He's meeting with Greenberg for brunch today. Greenberg's wife sits on the charity board with Victor's new girlfriend. It's all connected. Of course it is. Victor doesn't make a move without 3 contingency plans and a dinner reservation. "Sophia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "When am I not honest with you? Are you okay?" "Not professionally. Personally. Because I've watched you run on fumes for 6 months, and this thing with Victor is getting worse. You need people in your corner. Real people, not just lawyers and board allies." Sophia thought about Evan, about the corner table, about telling a stranger the truth when she couldn't tell her own legal counsel. "I'm working on it," she said. "That's not an answer. It's the best one I've got right now. What do I need to do before Monday?" Patricia walked her through it. 3 calls to make. 2 documents to review. 1 face-to-face meeting with a board member named Susan Park, who was still undecided and could swing the vote either way. Sophia spent the rest of Saturday working. She made the calls. She reviewed the documents. She scheduled the meeting with Susan for Sunday afternoon. She did everything right, everything by the book, everything the way a CEO was supposed to handle a corporate insurrection. And the whole time, some part of her kept thinking about a man who'd called bread a solution, and whose daughter drew trees that looked like Dad's. At 4 o'clock, her phone buzzed. "Evan. Emma wants to know if the lady from the restaurant likes dogs. She's conducting a survey, very official. There's a clipboard involved." Sophia typed back, "Tell Emma yes. I love dogs. What kind does she have?" Evan. "Golden retriever named Captain Biscuit. Emma named him. I had no say." Sophia. "Captain Biscuit is a perfect name." Evan. "Don't tell Emma that. She'll start naming everything. Last week she tried to rename the mailbox Sir Lettersworth." Sophia laughed out loud in her empty penthouse. The sound bounced off the marble and glass and came back to her, and she realized how strange it was to hear her own laughter in this apartment. Like it didn't belong here. Evan. "How's your Saturday? Still fighting the good fight?" Sophia stared at the message. She could give him the easy answer. Fine, busy, the usual. But something about last night, about the honesty of it, made the easy answer feel like a betrayal. Sophia. "Honestly, it's getting worse. My ex filed a motion with the SEC. He's trying to burn it all down." Evan didn't respond for 3 minutes. Then Evan. I don't know anything about SEC filings or boardroom politics, but I know what it's like when someone who was supposed to be on your team tries to tear you apart. And I know that the people who do that are counting on you being alone when it happens. Are you alone right now? Sophia looked around the penthouse. The empty couch. The untouched kitchen. The view that cost $10 million and showed her nothing but distance. Sophia. Yes. Evan. Emma and I are going to the park tomorrow morning. Lincoln Park by the South Pond. She feeds the ducks every Sunday. You're welcome to join us if you want. No pressure, just ducks. Sophia read the message 3 times. Then she typed the only word that mattered. Yes. Sunday morning, Lincoln Park, 9 a.m. Sophia almost didn't go. She stood in her closet for 20 minutes, staring at rows of designer clothes and realizing she didn't own anything appropriate for feeding ducks with a 7-year-old. Everything she owned was armor-sharp blazers, structured dresses, heels designed to make her taller than the men across the table. None of it was real. She finally pulled out a pair of jeans she'd bought 2 years ago and never worn a simple white sweater and flat boots. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She drove to Lincoln Park and found them near the South Pond. Evan was sitting on a bench, a bag of bread in his lap. Emma was standing at the water's edge, engaged in what appeared to be a very serious conversation with a duck. "That one's Gerald," Emma announced without looking up as Sophia approached. "He's rude, but I love him anyway." Sophia looked at Evan. He shrugged. "She's named all of them. Don't get her started on Margaret." "What's wrong with Margaret?" "She steals Gerald's bread. Emma's written a formal complaint. I had to notarize it." Sophia crouched down next to Emma. The little girl had Evan's hazel eyes and a spray of freckles across her nose. She was wearing rain boots with dinosaurs on them and a jacket that was zipped up to her chin. "Hi, Emma. I'm Sophia." Emma looked at her with the devastating directness that only children possess. "Are you my dad's friend?" "I think so. Is that okay?" Emma considered this with the gravity of a Supreme Court justice. "Do you like Captain Biscuit? I haven't met him yet, but your dad says he's very handsome." "He is. He's the most handsome dog in Chicago. Dad says he's also the dumbest, but that's not nice." "It's accurate," Evan said from the bench. Emma ignored him and handed Sophia a piece of bread. "You can feed Gerald, but throw it to the left because Margaret is sneaky and she'll grab it." Sophia took the bread. She threw it to the left. Gerald waddled over and ate it. Margaret watched from a distance, scheming. For the next hour, Sophia fed ducks with a 7-year-old and felt more at peace than she had in the entire last quarter of Langford Capital's fiscal year. Evan watched them from the bench. At some point, Sophia sat down next to him while Emma chased Gerald around the pond's edge with the determination of a tiny general. "She's incredible," Sophia said. "She's a handful, but yeah, she's incredible." "Evan, can I tell you something?" "Always." "Well, I don't do this. I don't go to parks. I don't feed ducks. I don't sit on benches. My weekends are board calls and strategy sessions and reading reports until my eyes cross. This?" She gestured at the pond at Emma at the bread bag between them. "I don't know how to do this." Evan looked at her. Not with pity, not with judgment, with something that felt disturbingly close to understanding. "Nobody knows how to do this, Sophia. You just show up and throw bread. That's the whole thing." "That can't be the whole thing." "It is. The world wants you to think everything has to be complicated. Strategy, leverage, positioning. But some things are just simple. You show up, you throw bread, you watch your kid chase a duck named Gerald, and for a little while, nothing else matters." Sophia felt something crack inside her. Not break crack, like a wall developing its first fissure, the kind of crack that lets light in. "My ex never came to the park," she said quietly. 3 years of marriage, and Victor never once suggested we go outside and just be. Everything was a function, a gala, a dinner with people he needed to impress. I was a prop in his life, Evan. A very expensive, very useful prop. You're not a prop. I know that now, but for 3 years I didn't. What changed? I left him, and he's been punishing me for it ever since. Evan was quiet for a moment. He watched Emma crouch down near the water and whisper something to Gerald, who responded by honking loudly and waddling away. Claire didn't punish me, Evan said. She just disappeared. One Tuesday morning she packed a bag, kissed Emma on the forehead, and said she'd be back in a week. That was 4 years ago. She never came back. She sends birthday cards. Emma's birthday is in March. The card usually arrives in April. Last year it came from Portland. The year before Denver. She's looking for something. I just hope she finds it before Emma stops caring. Does Emma talk about her? Sometimes. Less now than she used to. Last month she asked me why some moms stay and some moms go, and I didn't have an answer. So I said, sometimes people have to go away to figure out who they are. And Emma said, I already know who I am. I'm Emma Brooks, and I like dogs. I almost lost it right there. Sophia felt her eyes sting. She blinked hard. Kids have this way of making everything devastatingly clear, she said. They do. Emma doesn't do subtext. She doesn't play games. If she's mad, she tells you. If she's happy, she shows you. If she loves you, you know it. Adults could learn a lot from 7-year-olds. I think I'm learning right now. Emma came running back breathless, cheeks flushed. Dad, Gerald let me pet him. Did he really? Well, I touched his tail and he didn't bite me, so I think that counts. That definitely counts. Emma looked at Sophia. Are you staying for lunch? Dad makes really good grilled cheese. Sophia looked at Evan. He raised his eyebrows. No pressure, no expectation, just an open door. I'd love grilled cheese, Sophia said. They walked to Evan's car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic with a car seat in the back and crayon marks on the upholstery. Sophia climbed in the passenger seat and felt something crunch beneath her. That's a cracker, Evan said. Sorry, Emma's car is basically a snack graveyard. I love it. You don't have to say that. I mean it. My car is spotless because nobody's ever in it but me. This car has crackers and crayons and a car seat. This car has life in it. Evan looked at her for a moment longer than necessary. Then he started the engine. His house was a small 2-story in Ravenswood with a chain-link fence and a front yard that had clearly been dug up by a dog with more enthusiasm than sense. Captain Biscuit met them at the door, 70 pounds of golden fur and unbridled joy, and immediately tried to climb into Sophia's arms. Biscuit down, Evan said. It's fine. Sophia knelt down and let the dog lick her face. Captain Biscuit's tail wagged so hard, his entire back end swung side to side. Oh, you are handsome. Dad, she said, he's handsome, Emma shouted from the hallway. I heard. The house was small, lived in. A couch with a blanket thrown over the back. A coffee table covered in coloring books, and a half-finished puzzle. Photos on the wall. Emma as a baby. Emma on her first day of school. Emma and Evan at what looked like a county fair. Both of them mid-laugh, cotton candy on their faces. No photos of Claire. Sophia noticed that immediately. Evan went to the kitchen. Sophia followed him and leaned against the counter while he pulled out bread, butter, and cheese. So this is the famous grilled cheese, she said. Don't get too excited. The secret ingredient is butter. A lot of butter. Sounds like my kind of cooking. You cook? I used to. Before, she paused. Before I became someone who orders delivery every night and eats alone at a kitchen island that seats 8. Yeshiya. Evan looked at her over his shoulder. That's the saddest sentence I've ever heard. It's not sad. It's efficient. Sophia eating alone at a table that seats 8 is not efficient. It's lonely. There's a difference. She opened her mouth to argue, stopped, closed it. Yeah, she said. It's lonely. He turned back to the stove. The butter sizzled in the pan. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, with Captain Biscuit at her heels. "Dad, can Sophia see my room? If she wants to." "Sophia, do you want to see my room? I have a fish named Kevin." "I would love to meet Kevin." Emma grabbed her hand and pulled her down the hallway. Her room was exactly what Sophia would have imagined. Pink walls, a bookshelf overflowing with picture books, a bed covered in stuffed animals, and a small fishbowl on the dresser containing a single orange goldfish. "That's Kevin," Emma said. "He doesn't do much, but he's a good listener. Everyone needs a good listener." "That's what Dad says." Emma sat on her bed and looked up at Sophia with those devastating hazel eyes. "Sophia, yeah. My dad is really nice. He makes good grilled cheese and he reads me stories every night and he never yells, but sometimes he's sad. He tries to hide it, but I can tell because he stands in the yard and looks at nothing." Sophia's chest tightened. "Your dad loves you very much, Emma. I know, but I think he needs a friend, a grown-up friend, not just me and Captain Biscuit and Kevin. I think you might be right. Are you going to be his friend?" Sophia knelt down so she was eye level with Emma. "I'm going to try," she said. "Is that okay?" Emma nodded solemnly. "Okay. But if you're mean to him, Gerald will get you." "Gerald the duck." "He's meaner than he looks." Sophia smiled. "Deal." From the kitchen, Evan's voice. "Grilled cheese is ready. Come and get it before Biscuit does." They ate at a small table in the kitchen. Emma sat between them, telling a story about a kid in her class named Marcus, who could burp the alphabet. Evan kept adding details that were clearly made up, and Emma kept correcting him with exasperated patience. It was the most ordinary meal Sophia had ever eaten. Grilled cheese on white bread cut into triangles with apple slices and a glass of milk for Emma, and coffee for the adults. No wine list. No prefix menu. No waiters in black aprons. It was the best meal she'd had in years. After lunch, Emma fell asleep on the couch with Captain Biscuit. Evan covered her with a blanket and walked Sophia to the front porch. They sat on the steps. The October sun was pale and low, casting long shadows across the yard. "Thank you for today," Sophia said. "Thank Emma. She's the one who invited you to lunch." "Evan?" "Yeah. I have a meeting at 2 o'clock, a board member I need to convince, and then I have to spend the rest of today preparing for Monday, and I'm sitting here on your porch and I don't want to leave." Evan was quiet for a moment. "Then don't leave yet." "I have to. I know. But you don't have to leave yet. There's a difference." She sat with that. Let it settle. "Emma told me something," she said. "In her room." "Uh-oh. What did she say?" "She said you stand in the yard and look at nothing. She said you're sad sometimes." Evan's jaw tightened. He looked away across the yard at nothing exactly the way Emma had described. "She sees everything," he said quietly. "I try so hard to keep it together for her, and she sees right through it. She's 7 years old, and she sees right through me. That's not a bad thing." "Isn't it? She shouldn't have to worry about me. That's not her job." "She's not worrying. She's loving you. That's different." Evan looked at her. His eyes were wet. "When did you get so wise?" he said, and his voice cracked just enough to let the truth through. "About 6 hours ago at a restaurant when a man with a crayon drawing let a stranger sit at his table." He almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he reached over and took her hand. His fingers were warm and rough and real, and Sophia held on like she was drowning, and he was solid ground. They sat like that for a while, not speaking. Just two people holding hands on a porch in Ravenswood, while a 7-year-old slept inside with a half-bald dog and a goldfish named Kevin. Then Sophia's phone rang. She looked at the screen. Susan Park. "I have to take this," she said. "Go." She stood up, walked to the edge of the yard and answered. "Susan, Thank you for calling me back. Sophia, I'll be honest with you. Victor made a compelling case yesterday. He's saying the Meridian deal is over-leveraged and that you're pushing it through for personal reasons. That's not true, and you know it. I know it. But I need more than my instinct. I need you to show me the numbers. Real numbers, not projections. Can you do that by tomorrow morning? I'll have them on your desk by midnight tonight. Then I'll keep an open mind. But Sophia, whatever you bring me, it has to be ironclad. Victor isn't just fighting the deal, he's fighting you. And some people on this board are starting to listen. I understand. She hung up and turned back to Evan. He was still sitting on the steps watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. That sounded important, he said. It is. I need to go. I know. She walked back to the steps, stood in front of him. Evan, I don't know what this is. You and me. I don't have a word for it. But I need you to know that the last 24 hours have meant more to me than... She stopped, took a breath. More than I know how to say. Evan stood up. They were close. Close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his hazel eyes. Close enough to feel his warmth against the October chill. You don't have to have a word for it, he said. Not everything needs a label. In my world, everything needs a label. Then maybe your world needs to get a little bigger. Yeche. She almost kissed him. She could feel the pull of it, the gravity between them. But something held her back. Not fear exactly, but caution. The understanding that whatever this was, it deserved more than a rushed moment on a porch before a board meeting. Can I call you tonight? She said. You can call me anytime. She walked to her car. Got in. Started the engine. Looked back at the small house in Ravenswood with its chain-link fence and its chewed-up yard and its windows glowing warm in the thin October sun. Evan was still standing on the porch, one hand raised in a wave. She waved back and drove away. The meeting with Susan Park went well. Sophia was sharp-focused, prepared. She presented the Meridian numbers with precision and clarity, answered every question, countered every objection. Susan didn't commit, but she didn't say no. It was progress, small, fragile progress. By the time Sophia got home, it was 11 p.m. She sat at her desk and opened the financial models, cross-referenced the projections, and built the case that would either save her company or be the last professional document she ever wrote. At midnight, she emailed everything to Susan. At 12:15, she called Evan. He picked up on the second ring. Hey. Did I wake you? I was reading. Emma goes to bed at 8, and I usually stay up too late with a book I'm not smart enough for. Tonight, it's Hemingway. Which one? The Old Man and the Sea. Have you read it? In college. I remember thinking it was about fishing. Evan laughed softly. It's about a man who refuses to be beaten. Even when the sharks take everything he caught, he keeps going. He drags the skeleton back to shore because giving up was never an option. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. That's why you're reading it tonight, she said. Maybe. Or maybe I just like fishing stories. Evan. Yeah. I dragged the skeleton to Susan Park's desk tonight. Now I just have to wait and see if it's enough. It will be. You don't know that. No, but I know you, and I've known you for exactly 31 hours, which is apparently long enough to know that you don't lose. You get hit, you get tired, you get scared, but you don't lose. Sophia pressed the phone against her ear and closed her eyes. Tell me about the book, she whispered. Read me a line. Anything. Evan's voice came through the phone low and steady, and Sophia lay in the dark of her $10 million penthouse and listened to a man in Ravenswood read Hemingway, and for the second night in a row, she fell asleep without the weight of the world on her chest. Her phone was still connected when the screen went dark. Neither of them hung up. Monday came like a fist. Sophia was awake before her alarm, already sitting at the kitchen counter with a black coffee she hadn't touched, staring at her phone. No message from Susan Park. No message from Richard Calloway. Just the cold blue glow of a screen full of nothing. Die. She showered, dressed, and chose her armor carefully. A charcoal Stella McCartney suit, sharp at the shoulders. Hair pulled back tight. Minimal jewelry. Just her mother's pearl earrings, the ones she wore whenever she needed to remember who she was before all of this. Her phone buzzed at 7:15. Evan. The old man didn't let go of the line. Neither do you. Go get them. She read it twice, pressed the phone to her chest for a moment. Then she grabbed her keys and walked out the door. Langford Capital's boardroom was on the 32nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A long mahogany table that seated 14. When Sophia arrived at 8:45, 5 board members were already seated. Richard Calloway was at the far end reading something on his tablet. He didn't look up when she walked in. Patricia Holloway intercepted her at the door. Susan's here. She arrived 10 minutes ago. She hasn't said a word to anyone. Where's Victor? Not here yet, but he will be. He RSVP'd at 6 this morning. His assistant called to make sure there would be fresh coffee. His brand. Imported. Of course she did. Sophia walked to her seat at the head of the table. She set her folder down, opened it, and arranged her notes with the calm, methodical precision of a surgeon preparing instruments. Every number memorized, every objection anticipated, every scenario mapped. She was ready. The board members trickled in. Greenberg arrived with Tanaka, both avoiding eye contact with Sophia. Susan Park sat 3 seats down, her expression unreadable. David Chen, the youngest board member, gave Sophia a small nod. Margaret Foster, who'd been on the board since the company's founding, squeezed Sophia's shoulder as she passed. By 9 o'clock, 12 of 14 seats were filled. At 9:03, Victor Ashford walked in. He was tall, lean, and impeccably dressed. A navy Tom Ford suit, no tie, the top button undone in a way that was supposed to suggest casual confidence, but to Sophia had always screamed calculated performance. His dark hair was swept back his jaw, freshly shaved, and his smile was the kind that warmed a room while freezing the person it was aimed at. "Good morning, everyone," Victor said as though he were hosting. "Sophia, you look well." "Victor?" He sat down across from her, crossed his legs, folded his hands on the table. His eyes found hers and held them with the easy dominance of a man who'd spent 3 years practicing control. "Shall we begin?" Richard said from the end of the table. The next 2 hours were war, and Sophia presented first. The Meridian acquisition, the numbers, the strategy, the 5-year projection. She spoke without notes for 40 minutes, walking the board through every data point, every risk assessment, every contingency plan. She was precise. She was passionate. She was everything a CEO should be. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then Victor stood up. "That was impressive, Sophia. Truly. You've always had a gift for making the complicated sound simple." He paused, letting the compliment curdle. "But let me offer some context that wasn't included in that presentation." He pulled a flash drive from his pocket and plugged it into the conference room system. A spreadsheet appeared on the screen behind him. "These are the internal communications from Meridian's CFO, obtained through a source I'll keep confidential for now. What they show is a pattern of revenue inflation, small adjustments, quarter over quarter, that cumulatively paint a picture very different from what Sophia just showed you." Sophia's stomach dropped. She kept her face still. "Victor, those documents haven't been verified," Patricia said immediately. "They don't need to be verified to raise questions, Patricia. They need to be investigated. And the fact that they exist at all should give every person in this room pause." "Where did you get those?" Sophia said. Her voice was level, but her hands were pressed flat against the table. Victor smiled. "I think the more important question is why you didn't find them yourself. Due diligence is the CEO's responsibility, isn't it? Those could be fabricated, you know that. They could be, but are they? That's what the board needs to decide." The room shifted. Sophia could feel it, the subtle change in posture, the sideways glances, the doubt creeping in like smoke under a door. Victor hadn't proven anything. He didn't need to. He just needed to create uncertainty, and uncertainty was his greatest weapon. Greenberg spoke first. Sophia, I think we need to table the vote until these documents can be reviewed. I agree, Tanaka said. Sophia looked at Susan Park. Susan was staring at the spreadsheet on the screen, her brow furrowed. Susan, Sophia said. Susan looked at her, then at Victor, then back at the screen. I think delaying the vote is prudent, Susan said carefully. Not because I believe these documents are authentic, but because proceeding without addressing them would be irresponsible. Victor leaned back in his chair. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. The damage was done. I motion to table the Meridian vote for 30 days, pending a full independent review, Victor said. The vote to delay passed 9-5. Sophia sat in the boardroom after everyone left. Patricia stayed with her. Those documents are fake, Sophia said. I know. He fabricated them, or paid someone to fabricate them. This is exactly what he does. I know, Sophia. But knowing it and proving it are two different things. We need to get our hands on the originals from Meridian. I'll call their legal team this afternoon. 30 days. He bought himself 30 days. And in 30 days, he'll find something else. Another delay. Another distraction. He'll keep pushing until the board gets tired and kills the deal just to make the noise stop. Patricia sat down next to her. What are you going to do? I'm going to prove those documents are fraudulent, and then I'm going to make sure Victor never sits in this boardroom again. How? I don't know yet, but I will. Patricia left at noon. Sophia stayed in the boardroom until 1 o'clock alone with the silence and the long mahogany table and the ghost of Victor's smile. Then she picked up her phone and called Evan. He answered on the first ring. How'd it go? He won. Tell me. She told him. All of it. The presentation, the fabricated documents, the vote to delay the way Victor had turned her own board against her with a flash drive and a smile. Evan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said, Where are you right now? Still in the boardroom. Have you eaten? No. Sophia. I'm not hungry. That's not what I asked. I asked if you've eaten. She closed her eyes. No, I haven't. There's a place on Clark Street called Danny's, best turkey sandwich in Chicago. I'm taking my lunch break in 20 minutes. Meet me there. Evan, I can't just... You can. You just told me a man tried to burn down your career with fake documents. You're sitting alone in an empty room, and you haven't eaten. Meet me at Danny's. She went. Danny's was a narrow deli with 9 tables and a counter that smelled like pickles and fresh bread. Evan was already there when she arrived, sitting in the back with 2 turkey sandwiches and 2 bottles of water. She sat down across from him. She didn't speak. She just sat there, and something in her face must have told him everything, because Evan reached across the table and put his hand over hers. Eat first, he said. Talk after. She ate. The sandwich was unremarkable turkey lettuce mustard on rye, but it was real, and she was hungry in a way she hadn't let herself acknowledge. She ate the entire thing without stopping. Then she talked. He's going to win, Evan. Not because he's smarter, not because he's right, because he doesn't care what he destroys. And I do. I care about the company. I care about the people who work there. I care about getting this right. And he uses that against me. My caring is the weapon he turns on me. That's what people like him do, Evan said. Claire was the same way. Different scale, different arena, but the same playbook. She knew I'd never fight dirty because Emma was watching. So she could leave whenever she wanted, however she wanted, and I'd just stand there and absorb it. Because that's what good people do. They absorb it. I'm tired of absorbing it. Then stop. It's not that simple. Isn't it? You've been playing his game, Sophia. You've been defending yourself in a system he's rigged. Stop defending. Start attacking. I don't attack. That's not who I am. I'm not talking about becoming him, I'm talking about fighting back without apologizing for it. There's a difference between being ruthless and being strong. You're strong. Use it. She looked at him. This man who coordinated construction projects and fed ducks and made grilled cheese for a living was sitting in a 9-table deli telling a billionaire CEO how to win a corporate war. And the insane thing was, he was right. "How do you know this?" she said. "How do you know any of this?" "Because I spent 2 years letting Claire's absence define me. I made excuses for her. I told people she was finding herself. I protected her reputation even after she left our daughter without a backward glance. And then one morning I woke up and Emma was standing in my doorway, holding Captain Biscuit's leash, and she said, 'Dad, are we going to the park, or are you going to be sad again?' And I realized I had a choice. I could keep being the man things happened to, or I could be the man who happened to things." "The man who happens to things," Sophia repeated. "It's not elegant, but it's true." "What did you do?" "I went to the park. And then I came home and packed up every single thing Claire left behind, every photo, every sweater, every book, and I put it all in the garage. Not out of anger, out of clarity. I needed my house to be mine and Emma's, not a museum of someone who chose to leave." Sophia felt the words land in her chest like stones dropping into still water. Ripples spreading outward, reaching places she'd kept sealed. "I've been running a museum," she whispered. "What?" "My company, my board, my entire professional life. It's a museum of my marriage to Victor. He's still on the board because I let him stay. He's still in my life because I never fully cut him out. I thought keeping him close was strategic. I told myself I could manage him. But the truth is, I was afraid of what would happen if I really let go." "What are you afraid of?" "That without him to fight, I won't know who I am." The words hung in the air between them. Sophia hadn't planned to say that. She didn't even know it was true until it came out of her mouth. But there it was, the core of it, the thing she'd been circling for 3 years. Evan didn't flinch. "You know who you are, Sophia. You walked into a crowded restaurant and sat down with a stranger. You fed ducks with a 7-year-old. You ate a turkey sandwich in a deli. None of that required Victor. None of that required Langford Capital. That was just you. Just me isn't enough. Just you is plenty." She stared at him. This man who didn't have a corner office or a board of directors or a net worth with 9 zeros. This man who had a daughter and a dog and a house in Ravenswood and a well-worn copy of Hemingway on his nightstand. This man who saw her not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the ex-wife, just her. "Evan, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "I looked you up. After Friday night. I searched your name." He didn't react. "And you're a project coordinator for a construction firm on the north side. You've been there for 8 years. You make a good living, but not a spectacular one. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You coach Emma's soccer team. You volunteer at the food bank on Thanksgiving. That's all public information." "I know, but here's the thing. I looked all of that up and none of it changed how I felt about Friday night, about Saturday, about this morning. In my world, people run background checks on each other before the second date. They calculate what you're worth and decide if you're an asset or a liability. And I looked at your life on paper, and all I could think was, this is the most real person I've ever met." Evan was quiet for a long time. He took a drink of water, set the bottle down, turned it slowly in his hands. "I looked you up too," he said. "You did. Saturday morning, before I texted you about the park, I Googled Sophia Langford and got 14 million results. Forbes lists, magazine covers, a net worth that made my head spin. Photos of you at galas and fundraisers and economic summits." He paused. "And then I Googled Sophia Langford and Victor Ashford, and I read about the divorce. The tabloid coverage, the rumors he spread about you, the way he tried to make you look unhinged in the press." Sophia's face hardened. "Those stories were lies." "I know they were lies. I know because I sat across from you at Morello's, and the woman I met wasn't unhinged. She was exhausted, she was lonely, and she was brave enough to ask a stranger for a seat. So you knew. When you invited me to the park, you knew who I was, what I was worth. I knew what the internet said you were worth. But Sophia, the woman who knelt down in the grass and let my daughter hand her bread to throw at a duck, that woman isn't worth a number. That woman is worth showing up for. Something broke open in Sophia then. Not dramatically, not with tears or trembling. It was quieter than that. It was the feeling of a locked door opening in a house she'd forgotten had rooms she hadn't entered. I don't know how to do this, she said. Do what? Trust someone, not strategically, not because they're useful. Just trust them. I've forgotten how. You trusted me with the truth on Friday night. That's a start. That was easy. You were a stranger. Strangers are safe because they don't matter yet. Do I matter now? She met his eyes. Yes, and that terrifies me. Evan smiled. Not the easy, effortless smile from the restaurant. This one was smaller, more fragile, like he was holding something delicate and didn't want to drop it. It terrifies me too, he said. For different reasons. Because you're going to go back to that boardroom and fight a war I can't help you win. And I'm going to go home and read Emma a bedtime story and wonder if the woman I can't stop thinking about is okay. And neither of us is going to know what happens next. What do you want to happen next? I want to see you again. Tomorrow. The day after. The day after that. I want Emma to feed you bread at the park, and Captain Biscuit to ruin your clothes, and Mrs. Chen to teach you Mandarin insults. I want you in my ordinary life, Sophia. That's what I want. Your life isn't ordinary. Compared to yours, it is. Compared to mine, it's extraordinary. They sat in the deli for another hour. The lunch crowd came and went. Danny himself refilled their waters twice without being asked, and said nothing the way old restaurant owners do when they can see something important happening at one of their tables. When they finally stood to leave, Sophia's phone had 11 missed calls. 3 from Patricia, 2 from Richard, 6 from numbers she didn't recognize. The world wants you back, Evan said. The world can wait 5 more minutes. She walked outside with him. The October wind was sharper now, carrying the first real bite of the approaching winter. They stood on the sidewalk facing each other the way they had outside Morello's 2 nights ago. Evan. Yeah. I'm going to fight him. Victor, I'm going to prove those documents are fake, and I'm going to get him removed from my board. I know you are. But I need you to understand something. When I fight hard, and the next few weeks are going to be ugly. Victor doesn't lose gracefully. He retaliates, he escalates, and when he finds out about you, about us, he's going to try to use it. Let him try. I'm serious. He'll dig into your life. He'll find things to use against you, against Emma. Something shifted in Evan's face. The warmth didn't disappear, but something harder emerged beneath it. Something protective and immovable. Mate. Sophia, I've spent 4 years raising a daughter alone. I've worked overtime to keep a roof over her head. I've sat in parent-teacher conferences and doctor's offices and school plays as the only dad without a partner in the room. I've held that little girl while she cried for a mother who wasn't coming back. There is nothing Victor Ashford can throw at me that's harder than what I've already survived. You don't know him. No. But I know me. And I know that anyone who tries to use my daughter as a weapon will discover very quickly that I am not the kind of man who backs down. He said it quietly, without bravado, without raising his voice. And that was what made it terrifying, the absolute unshakable certainty of a father who had drawn a line and would die on it. Sophia looked at him and felt something shift inside her. Not the crack from yesterday, something deeper, something foundational, like a building settling into new ground. Okay, she said. Okay. I'll call you tonight. I'll be up. Hemingway and I have a date. She almost smiled. Which part are you on? The part where the sharks come. How does it end? Evan looked at her with those hazel eyes, and she saw in them the same thing she'd seen at Morello's steadiness warmth, and something that might have been love if either of them was ready to call it that. He goes out to sea again, Evan said. That's how it ends. He loses everything and he goes out to sea again. Sophia nodded slowly. Yeah, she said. That sounds about right. She turned and walked to her car. She didn't look back this time. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't need to. She knew he was there. She knew he'd still be there when she called tonight and tomorrow and the day after that. She had a war to fight, and for the first time, she wasn't fighting it alone. Patricia called at 7 the next morning with the first piece of good news Sophia had heard in days. Meridian's legal team sent over the original financial records, every single one. Sophia Victor's documents don't match, not even close. The formatting is wrong, the timestamps are inconsistent, and 3 of the spreadsheets reference a fiscal quarter that hasn't ended yet. Sophia set down her coffee. He fabricated documents that reference a quarter that hasn't closed? He got sloppy, or whoever he paid got sloppy. Either way, this is it. This is the proof. How fast can you put together a presentation for the board? I already started, but Sophia, there's something else. I ran a metadata analysis on Victor's files. The documents were created on a computer registered to a consulting firm called Greystone Advisory. I've never heard of them, but I looked them up. They were incorporated 6 months ago. 1 employee, no clients on record, and the registered address is a P.O. box in Wilmington, Delaware. A shell company that Victor used to manufacture evidence against your acquisition. If we can connect him directly to Greystone, this isn't just a board matter anymore. This is fraud. Sophia's pulse quickened. Not with fear, with something sharper. Something that felt like the moment before a door opens, and you know what's behind it. Connect him, she said. Whatever it takes. Connect him to Greystone. I'll need forensic accountants, and possibly a private investigator. Hire them, today. Sophia, this is going to cost. I don't care what it costs. Victor used forged documents to delay a legitimate acquisition and undermine my leadership. He committed fraud in front of my entire board. I'm not just going to prove it. I'm going to end him. Patricia was quiet for a beat. That doesn't sound like you. Maybe it should. She hung up and stood at the window. Lake Michigan was gray and flat under a heavy sky. Somewhere across the city, Victor was probably having his imported coffee and feeling untouchable. Not for long. She called Evan at lunch. Something happened, he said immediately. He could already read her voice. That fact alone stopped her for a moment, the realization that this man she'd known for 4 days could hear the difference between her bad days and her dangerous ones. I found the proof, she said. Victor's documents are fake. We can prove it. That's not a something happened voice. That's a something's about to happen voice. What are you planning? I'm going to expose him, not just to the board, to everyone. He committed securities fraud, Evan. He forged financial documents to manipulate a corporate vote. If I take this to the SEC... Sophia. What? Slow down. Take a breath. I don't need to slow down. I need to move fast before he covers his tracks. You need to slow down because you're angry. And angry decisions made fast are exactly how people like Victor want you to react. He's been pushing you for 3 years. Don't let the first piece of good news make you swing wild. She closed her eyes. Hated that he was right. Loved that he said it anyway. I'm not swinging wild. You just said you want to end him. That's not strategy. That's revenge. Maybe he deserves revenge. Maybe he does. But you deserve better than becoming the person he already told the board you were. Unstable, emotional, making decisions based on feelings instead of facts. If you go scorched earth right now, you prove every lie he ever told about you. The silence between them stretched. Sophia pressed her forehead against the cold glass of her office window. "I hate that you're right," she said. "I know. When did you become my strategic advisor?" "Somewhere between the turkey sandwich and Hemingway. It's been a busy week." She almost laughed. Almost. "Okay, I'll be smart about it. Methodical. We build the case, we verify everything, and then we present it to the board with enough evidence that there's no room for Victor to spin it." That's the Sophia who walked into Morello's. The one who doesn't flinch. I flinch. I just don't let anyone see it. You let me see it. That's different. Why? She didn't answer. Not because she didn't know, but because the answer was too big for a phone call in the middle of a Tuesday. "Can I see you tonight?" she said instead. "Emma has soccer practice until 6. Come for dinner. She's been asking about you." "She has. She drew you a picture. You're standing next to Captain Biscuit. You're taller than the house." "Am I a tree?" "You're a person. She said you're not a tree because trees don't wear fancy shoes." Sophia laughed, and the anger she'd been carrying all morning loosened its grip just enough for her to breathe. She arrived at Evan's house at 6:30 with a bottle of wine and a stuffed duck she'd bought at a toy store on her way over. Emma answered the door, saw the duck, and screamed with delight. "Dad, Sophia brought me a Gerald." "That's not Gerald. Gerald lives at the pond. It's Gerald's cousin. His name is Gerald Jr." Emma was already running down the hallway holding the duck above her head like a trophy. Evan stood in the doorway watching Sophia with an expression that was half amusement, half something deeper. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I wanted to. Is that allowed?" "It's allowed. But now she's going to expect gifts every time you come over." "Then I'll bring gifts every time I come over." He held the door open and she stepped inside. Captain Biscuit greeted her with his usual full-body assault, and she knelt down and let him cover her face in dog slobber, while Evan shook his head. "Those are the most expensive clothes that dog has ever ruined." "Good. And dinner was spaghetti." Evan cooked while Sophia sat at the kitchen table with Emma, who was giving a detailed account of soccer practice. Apparently, a boy named Tyler had kicked the ball into his own goal, and the entire team had debated whether it counted. "It shouldn't count because it was an accident," Emma said firmly. "But the ball went in the goal," Sophia said. "But he didn't mean to." "In business, things count whether you meant them to or not." Emma stared at her. "That's a terrible rule." Evan laughed from the stove. "She's got you there." After dinner, Emma fell asleep on the couch, with Gerald Jr. tucked under one arm and Captain Biscuit sprawled across her legs. Evan carried her to bed, and Sophia listened from the hallway as he read her a chapter of Charlotte's Web. His voice was different when he read to Emma, softer, slower, as if each word was a gift he was wrapping carefully before handing it over. "Better." He came back to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of the wine Sophia had brought. They sat across from each other at the small table, the same table where they'd eaten grilled cheese 2 days ago, though it felt like a lifetime. "Evan, I need to tell you something I haven't told anyone." "Okay." "Victor hit me. Once, near the end of our marriage." Evan set his glass down. His jaw tightened, and something shifted behind his eyes. Something dark and controlled and unmistakably dangerous. "Where?" he said. Not a question, a demand. "My face, my left cheek. We were in our apartment, the old one, before I bought the penthouse. We were arguing about the company. I told him I wanted to restructure the board, and he said I was making a mistake. I said it was my company, not his, and he hit me. What happened after? I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just stood there holding my face and looking at him. And he looked at his hand like it belonged to someone else. Then he said, 'I'm sorry, that won't happen again.' And I said, 'You're right. It won't. Because you're leaving this apartment tonight.' And he left. He left. And 2 days later he filed for divorce. Not because he wanted out. Because he wanted to control the narrative. He told everyone he left me that I was difficult, impossible. He made himself the victim, and half the people in my industry believed him. Evan's hands were flat on the table. His knuckles were white. Sophia, why are you telling me this now? Because you need to understand what he is. Not just a manipulator, not just a liar. He's a man who hits women when they stand up to him. And when I expose the fraud, when I take his seat on the board, he's not going to just fight back with lawyers and lobbyists. He's going to come after me personally, and anyone connected to me. You're worried about me. I'm worried about Emma. That hit differently. She could see it land, the way Evan's entire body changed, the way the softness in his face hardened into something primal and immovable. No one touches Emma, he said. No one comes near her. No one uses her name, her school, her picture, nothing. That is not negotiable. I know. That's why I'm telling you now, so you can decide. Decide what? Whether this you and me is worth the risk. Because I can walk away tonight and Victor will never know you exist. You and Emma can go back to your life. The park, the ducks, the grilled cheese. None of this has to touch you. Evan looked at her for a long time. The kitchen was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and Captain Biscuit snoring in the living room. Sophia, do you remember what I told you outside Danny's? That there's nothing Victor can throw at me that's harder than what I've already survived. I remember. I meant it, but I need to tell you something too. Something I haven't told you yet. What? After Claire left, I went through a period where I couldn't function. I mean, really couldn't function. I'd drop Emma off at school and sit in the car for an hour because I didn't have the energy to drive home. I called in sick to work so many times they almost let me go. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I was drowning, and the only thing keeping me above water was the fact that a 3-year-old needed me to make breakfast in the morning. Evan, let me finish. One night, about 6 months after Claire left, I was sitting on the kitchen floor at 2 a.m. Emma was asleep. The house was silent. And I had this thought, this terrible, clear thought, that Emma would be better off without me, that my parents could raise her, that I was too broken to be anyone's father. Sophia's breath caught. I didn't act on it, Evan said quickly. I want you to know that. I sat on that floor for about an hour, and then I got up and I called my mom. I said, Mom, I need help. And she was on a plane the next morning. She stayed with us for 3 months. She held me together while I learned how to hold myself. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked me to decide whether you're worth the risk. And I need you to understand that I've already been to the bottom. I know what it looks like down there, and I know what it takes to climb back up. Victor Ashford is a bully in a nice suit. He is not the bottom. He's not even close. So don't ask me to walk away from you because of him. Don't insult me like that. Sophia's eyes filled. She blinked hard, but the tears came anyway, the first tears she'd cried in front of another person in years. I'm not crying because I'm sad, she said, wiping her face. I'm crying because you just said the most important thing anyone's ever said to me, and I don't know what to do with it. Evan stood up, walked around the table, knelt down in front of her chair so they were eye to eye. You don't have to do anything with it, he said. You just have to hear it. I'm here. I'm not leaving. And I'm not afraid of your ex-husband. She put her hands on his face. His cheeks were rough with stubble. His eyes were wet too, though he'd never admit it. Evan Brooks. Yeah. I think I'm falling in love with you, and it's the most inconvenient thing that's ever happened to me. He laughed. A real full laugh that broke the tension and filled the kitchen with something warm and alive. Inconvenient, he said. That's the most CEO way anyone's ever said, I love you. I didn't say I love you. I said I'm falling. You're falling. Fast. How fast? Terminal velocity. He kissed her. Right there in the kitchen on his knees with Captain Biscuit snoring 10 feet away, and a 7-year-old sleeping down the hall, and a goldfish named Kevin, bearing silent witness from the dresser. It was not a perfect kiss. Their noses bumped. She was crying. He tasted like red wine and spaghetti sauce. It was clumsy and honest, and completely irreversibly real. When they pulled apart, he pressed his forehead against hers. "For the record," he said, "I've been falling since you whispered, 'Can I sit with you?' at Morello's." That was 4 days ago. Fastest 4 days of my life. What do we do now? We do what we've been doing. You fight your war, I raise my daughter, and we figure out the rest together. Together, she said, testing the word like it was new, like she'd never said it before, and in a way she hadn't, not like this, not meaning it. They sat on the couch after that close together, not talking much. Evan's arm was around her shoulders, and Sophia leaned into him with the full weight of her exhaustion and her fear, and her something that felt like love. Her phone buzzed. Patricia. Forensic accountants found the link. Greystone Advisory's operating account received a wire transfer of $250,000 from an account in the Cayman Islands. The account is held by a trust. The trust's beneficiary is Victor Ashford. We have him, Sophia. We have him cold. Sophia read the message, read it again, felt something ignite in her chest that wasn't anger or revenge or desperation. It was clarity. She typed back, "Set up an emergency board meeting, Thursday, and call the SEC." She put the phone down and looked at Evan. "It's happening," she said. "What's happening?" "I just got proof that Victor paid a shell company to fabricate the documents he showed the board. Wire transfer, paper trail, everything." Evan's eyebrows went up. "That's not just a board problem. That's criminal. Yes." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to present the evidence to the board on Thursday, and I'm going to file a complaint with the SEC. And then I'm going to sit in my chair at the head of that table and watch Victor Ashford realize that the woman he hit, the woman he tried to destroy, the woman he called unstable, just beat him." Evan looked at her. She expected him to caution her again, to tell her to slow down, to be strategic, to not let anger drive. Instead, he said, "Good. That's it. Good. What else is there to say? You found the truth. Now you use it. That's not revenge, Sophia. That's justice. There's a difference." "When did you learn the difference?" "When I stopped being angry at Claire for leaving and started being grateful that Emma stayed." Sophia leaned her head against his shoulder. "I wish I'd met you 10 years ago." 10 years ago, I was a 25-year-old kid who thought he had everything figured out. You wouldn't have liked me." "I doubt that. I had a goatee. Okay, maybe I wouldn't have liked you." He laughed. She laughed. And in that small living room in Ravenswood, with the evidence of Victor's crimes glowing on her phone screen, Sophia Langford felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just safe, not just loved, powerful. Not the power she wielded in boardrooms, cold, transactional, always contingent on performance. This was different. This was the power that came from being known. From being seen at your worst and held anyway. From hearing a man say, "I'm not leaving," and believing him because he'd already proven it in 1,000 small ways, grilled cheese and Hemingway, and bread thrown at ducks, and a phone call left connected through the night. She stayed until 11. Evan walked her to the door. "Thursday," she said. "Thursday. Will you be here when I call after?" "I'll be here when you call. I'll be here if you don't call. I'll be here, Sophia. That's the whole point." She kissed him. Longer this time. Slower. A kiss that knew where it was going, even if they didn't. "Good night, confused potato," she whispered. "Good night, CEO." She drove home through the empty streets of Chicago. The city was quiet. The lake was dark. The penthouse was still cold and still empty and still echoed when she walked through it. But for the first time, it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like a place she was passing through on her way to somewhere better. Yeah. She sat down at her desk, opened her laptop, and began preparing for Thursday. The financial forensics, the wire transfer records, the metadata analysis, the timeline of Victor's deception laid out in irrefutable detail. She worked until 2 a.m. Methodical, precise, relentless. And when she finally closed the laptop and went to bed, she didn't call Evan. She texted him 3 words. "Thank you, always." His reply came 30 seconds later. "Always. Now sleep. Thursday's coming." She slept, deep, dreamless, unafraid. Thursday was coming. And so was she. Thursday arrived under a sky so gray it looked like Chicago itself was holding its breath. Sophia was in the boardroom by 8 a.m., an hour before anyone else. She laid out 14 folders, one at each seat, each containing the same 47 pages of evidence. The wire transfer records, the metadata analysis, the Greystone Advisory Incorporation documents, the timeline. Everything Patricia's team had assembled over 72 sleepless hours, printed on crisp white paper and bound with the kind of precision that left no room for doubt. Patricia arrived at 8:15. She looked at the folders and then at Sophia. "You're calm," Patricia said. "I'm ready." "There's a difference." "Last time you said there's a difference, you were quoting someone, the project coordinator." Sophia looked at her. "His name is Evan." "I know his name. I ran a background check." "Of course you did." "He's clean, Sophia. Remarkably clean. Not even a parking ticket. His credit score is higher than most of our board members. I didn't ask you to run a check on him." "No. But I did it because I care about you. And because the last man in your life turned out to be a criminal who forges financial documents. So forgive me for being cautious." Sophia couldn't argue with that. And I think he's good for you. That's my professional and personal opinion." "Thank you, Patricia." "Don't thank me yet. Thank me after we survive the next 2 hours." The board members began arriving at 8:45. Sophia watched them file in. Greenberg first, looking nervous. Tanaka behind him, avoiding eye contact. David Chen, who gave her the same quiet nod he always did. Margaret Foster, who squeezed her shoulder again. Susan Park, whose face was a mask of careful neutrality. By 8:55, 12 of 14 seats were filled. Victor's seat was empty. Richard Calloway leaned toward Sophia. His assistant called. "He's running late." "He's not running late. He's making an entrance." At 9:07, Victor walked in. Same navy suit, same calculated smile, same energy of a man who believed he owned every room he entered. "Apologies," he said, taking his seat. Traffic on Lake Shore was brutal. He glanced at the folder in front of him, but didn't open it. "What's this?" "Open it," Sophia said. Something in her voice made the room go still. Victor looked at her, really looked, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw a flicker of uncertainty cross his face. It was brief, a shadow passing behind his eyes. But she caught it. He opened the folder. This emergency session was called to address the documents presented at Monday's meeting, Sophia said. She stood up. She didn't need to. The CEO could run a board meeting from her chair. But she wanted to be on her feet for this. She wanted Victor to have to look up at her. On Monday, Victor presented financial documents allegedly obtained from Meridian's CFO. He claimed these documents showed a pattern of revenue inflation that called the acquisition into question. The board voted to delay the Meridian acquisition pending review. She paused. Let the silence work. The review is complete. She walked to the screen at the front of the room and pulled up the first slide. Side-by-side comparison. Victor's documents on the left, Meridian's verified originals on the right. The documents Victor presented are fabricated. The formatting doesn't match Meridian's internal systems. 3 of the spreadsheets reference Q4 data from a fiscal quarter that hasn't closed. And the metadata embedded in the files shows they were created not by Meridian's finance team, but by a company called Greystone Advisory. Victor's expression didn't change, but his hand resting on the table curled into a fist. Greystone Advisory, Sophia continued, was incorporated 6 months ago in Delaware. It has 1 employee, no clients, and a P.O. box for an address. It is by every legal definition a shell company. She advanced to the next slide. A bank record, a wire transfer, $250,000 from a Cayman Islands trust account to Greystone's operating account. The trust that funded Greystone is registered to 1 beneficiary. She looked directly at Victor. You. The room erupted. Not loudly, board members don't shout, but the murmurs, the shifting in seats, the sharp intakes of breath. It was the corporate equivalent of a bomb going off. Victor leaned back in his chair. His jaw was tight, but his voice was steady when he spoke. This is absurd. You're accusing me of fraud based on circumstantial evidence and a vendetta. The wire transfer isn't circumstantial, Victor. It's a direct financial link between you and the company that created the forged documents you presented to this board. Anyone could have set up that trust. My name could have been attached without my knowledge. Your signature is on the trust documents, page 31 of the folder in front of you. Every head in the room looked down. Pages turned. Victor didn't move. I've also filed a formal complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission, Sophia said. Their investigators will be reviewing the evidence starting tomorrow. Now Victor's mask cracked. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But Sophia saw it the way the color drained from his face, the way his jaw unlocked and then clenched again, the way his eyes darted to the door and back, calculating escape routes. You're bluffing, he said. Page 38, the SEC filing confirmation. Victor flipped to the page, read it again. His hand trembled. It was slight, almost invisible, but Sophia saw it and felt something she hadn't expected. Not triumph. Not satisfaction. Relief. I move to reinstate the Meridian acquisition vote immediately, Sophia said. And I move to remove Victor Ashford from this board effective today, pending the SEC investigation. You can't remove me. I have rights as a board member. Section 7.4 of the company bylaws, Patricia said from her seat, opening a separate document. A board member may be removed by a 2/3 majority vote if there is documented evidence of conduct detrimental to the company's interests. Securities fraud qualifies. Victor turned to Richard Calloway. Richard, you know me. This is a setup. Richard looked at Victor with the expression of a man who had just realized he'd been standing next to a bomb for 3 years. I think we should vote, Richard said quietly. All in favor of removing Victor Ashford from the board of Langford Capital, Sophia said. The hands went up. Greenberg, Tanaka, Susan Park, David Chen, Margaret Foster, Richard Calloway, one by one around the table until 13 hands were raised. Victor's hand stayed on the table, his fist still clenched. Motion carries, Sophia said, unanimously. Victor stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. The sound cut through the room like a blade. He looked around the table at the people who'd sat with him at dinners, who'd laughed at his jokes, who'd taken his calls, and none of them met his eyes. Then he looked at Sophia. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. You think because you found a paper trail you've won, you don't know what I'm capable of. I know exactly what you're capable of. I have a scar on my memory to prove it. And I'm not afraid of you anymore, Victor. That's the part you never planned for. Mau. The room went absolutely silent. Every board member understood what she'd just said. Not the specifics, she hadn't named it directly, but the weight of it was unmistakable. The unspoken thing that lived beneath the corporate warfare, beneath the legal battles, beneath the carefully maintained public narrative. The truth of what Victor Ashford really was. Victor's face went white, then red. His mouth opened again. You'll regret this, he said. I've regretted a lot of things. Marrying you, trusting you. letting you stay on this board for 2 years longer than I should have. But this, she gestured at the room, at the evidence, at the 13 people who had just voted to end his career. This I will never regret. Victor picked up his folder, walked to the door, stopped. Who is he? Victor said without turning around. Who is who? The man at the restaurant. Friday night. I heard about it. Who is he? He's none of your business, and if you go near him or his daughter, the SEC filing will be the least of your problems. Victor turned his head just enough to look at her over his shoulder. For a moment, she saw it the rage, the wounded ego, the desperate need to control a situation that had spiraled beyond his reach. And beneath all of it, something almost pitiful. The smallness of a man who had spent his entire life making others feel small and had finally run out of room. He walked out. The door closed behind him. The room exhaled. Motion to reinstate the Meridian acquisition vote, Sophia said. Her voice didn't waver. Her hands didn't shake. She was the CEO and she had a company to run. The Meridian vote passed 11-2. The two dissenting votes were Greenberg and Tanaka, who voted no, not because they opposed the deal, but because, as Greenberg said, I need to do my own due diligence after what just happened. Sophia respected that. She even told him so. After the meeting, Margaret Foster stayed behind. She was 73 years old, had been on the board since the company's first year, and had watched Sophia build Langford Capital from a rented office with folding chairs. Sophia. Margaret. I've wanted to say something for 2 years and I never had the courage, so I'm saying it now. I knew Victor was dangerous. I saw the way he operated, the charm, the manipulation, the way he made people doubt themselves. And I didn't speak up because I told myself it was a personal matter, that it wasn't my place. Margaret. Let me finish. It was my place. I was the most senior member of this board, and I should have protected you. I failed, and I'm sorry. Sophia took the older woman's hand. You voted for me today. Every time it mattered, you voted for me. That's not failure, that's loyalty. Margaret squeezed her hand. Your mother would be proud of you. Sophia's throat tightened. She nodded, couldn't speak, didn't need to. She called Evan from the parking garage. He picked up on the first ring, same as always. It's done, she said. Tell me everything. He's off the board. The vote was unanimous. The Meridian deal passed, and the SEC has his file. Evan was quiet for a moment. Then, how do you feel? She thought about it, really thought about it. Not the reflexive, fine, or the strategic, strong, but the actual, honest answer. I feel like the old man who dragged the skeleton to shore, she said. Exhausted. Beat up, but still here. You're still here, Evan repeated. And you're going out to sea again. Not tonight. Tonight, I want to come to Ravenswood and eat grilled cheese and let your dog ruin my suit. Emma's going to lose her mind. Good. I need someone to lose their mind over me in a way that doesn't involve stock prices. She drove to Ravenswood. The Honda was in the driveway. The porch light was on. Emma opened the door before Sophia even reached the steps, Gerald Jr. clutched in one hand and Captain Biscuit barging past her legs. Sophia, Dad said you had a really important day. I did. Did you win? Sophia crouched down. Yeah, baby, I won. Was it like soccer? A little, except nobody kicked the ball into their own goal. That's good. Tyler does that every time. Evan appeared behind Emma. He didn't say anything. He just leaned against the doorframe and looked at Sophia with those hazel eyes, and she felt everything, the exhaustion, the adrenaline, the relief, the love crash into her like a wave she'd been outrunning for years. She stood up and walked into his arms. He held her. Tight. Real. The kind of hold that says, I know what you just did, and I know what it cost, and I'm here. I'm proud of you, he whispered into her hair. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have. You just didn't have to. They went inside. Evan made grilled cheese. Emma gave a detailed report on Gerald Jr.'s adventures, which apparently included a diplomatic mission to Kevin the Fish's bowl. Captain Biscuit stole a slice of cheese off the counter and ate it with zero remorse. After Emma went to bed, Charlotte's Web, Chapter 7, read in Evan's low and steady voice. They sat on the couch. Sophia kicked off her shoes and tucked her feet under her. Evan handed her a glass of wine. "What happens now?" he asked. "With the company. We close the Meridian deal. I rebuild trust with the board members Victor compromised. I hire a new independent director to fill his seat. It's going to take months. And with Victor, that's up to the SEC. Patricia thinks they'll open a formal investigation. If they find enough, it goes to the DOJ. He could face criminal charges." "Good. You said that before, when I told you about the evidence." "I'll say it again. Good. He fabricated documents. He committed fraud. He hit you. Good is the only word I have for a man like that finally facing consequences." Sophia took a sip of wine. "Evan, can I ask you something I've been thinking about since Sunday?" "You can ask me anything." "The morning Emma asked you if you were going to be sad again. The morning you decided to go to the park instead. What would have happened if she hadn't said that?" Evan was quiet for a long time. He turned his wine glass slowly in his hands. "I don't know," he said. "And that's the honest answer. I was in a dark place. Not as dark as the kitchen floor, but dark enough. And Emma, she didn't know what she was doing. She was just a little kid who wanted to go to the park. But she pulled me out. Kids do that. They don't give you inspirational speeches. They just hand you a leash and say, 'Let's go.' And somehow that's enough. She saved you." "She did. And I've spent every day since trying to deserve it." "You deserve it, Evan. You deserve all of it." He looked at her. "So do you." "I'm starting to believe that." "Starting is enough." She set her glass down, shifted closer to him, put her head on his shoulder. "I want Emma to know," she said, "about us. I want this to be real, not something we hide." "She already knows." "She does. She told Mrs. Chen yesterday that her dad has a girlfriend who's taller than the house and has fancy shoes. Mrs. Chen sent me a text that said, and I quote, 'About time, confused potato.'" Sophia laughed so hard she almost spilled her wine. "Mrs. Chen is my favorite person I've never met. She's going to love you. She'll probably adopt you. Fair warning, once Mrs. Chen adopts you, you're getting dumplings every Sunday for the rest of your life. I can live with that." They sat together in the quiet of the small house in Ravenswood. No marble countertops, no floor-to-ceiling windows, no view of Lake Michigan, just a couch with a dog hair blanket, a coffee table covered in coloring books, and the sound of a 7-year-old breathing softly down the hall. "Evan." "Yeah. I love you. Not falling, not terminal velocity. Just love. Present tense, no qualifiers. No." He took her face in his hands. His palms were rough and warm, and she leaned into them like they were the only solid thing in the world. "I love you too," he said. Present tense, no qualifiers, no conditions, no exit strategy. No exit strategy. I like that. It's not a business term. It is actually, but I'm retiring it. He kissed her. Slow and sure and unhurried, the way a man kisses when he knows he has time. When he's not afraid she'll disappear. When he's not performing or calculating or trying to prove something. Just a man who loved a woman and wasn't afraid to show it in his small kitchen in Ravenswood on a Thursday night in October. When they pulled apart, Sophia pressed her forehead against his. "Can I tell you one more thing?" she said. "Always. Friday night when I walked into Morello's, I almost left. The hostess said it was a 45-minute wait, and I almost turned around and went home to my empty penthouse and my 8-seat kitchen island and my silence. I almost left. But you didn't." "I didn't, because I saw you, at that corner table, with your spaghetti and your crayon drawing and your flannel shirt, and something in me knew. Not about you, I didn't know anything about you yet, but something in me knew that if I walked out that door, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. And if you'd left, if you'd gone home, then I'd still be eating alone, and you'd still be standing in the yard looking at nothing, and Victor would still be on my board, and none of this would exist. But it does exist. It does. Because you whispered 5 words to a stranger. "Can I sit with you?" she said. "Can I sit with you?" he repeated. The 5 most important words anyone's ever said to me. She took his hand. He held on. Captain Biscuit snored. The house settled around them like an old friend making room. And somewhere in Lincoln Park, Gerald, the duck, slept by the south pond, completely unaware that he'd played a small but critical role in the love story of a billionaire CEO and a single dad from Ravenswood, who made really good grilled cheese and read Hemingway to a woman who'd forgotten she was allowed to be loved. The night ended the way it was always going to end, quietly, tenderly, with 2 people who had stopped hiding from their own hearts. Not with a grand gesture, not with a dramatic declaration. Just Evan's arm around Sophia's shoulders, Sophia's head against Evan's chest, and the steady, unhurried sound of 2 people breathing together in a house that finally, after a very long time, felt full.